everybody. Welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. This podcast is a platform for people to come and share their stories of resilience. And we've had many, many great stories shared here on this podcast. But today I'm really, really excited to have my friend Kelly Shaw on this podcast. Kelly and I met, gosh, it was 12 years ago. We worked at a gaming company together, and we quickly connected and became friends. Kelly also became one of my confidant, and she's always been there for me. I love Kelly to pieces, and I'm so honored that she's agreed to be on here to share her story of resilience with us. Kelly has since left the gaming world, though, and she's now started her own business. She's a business and life coach, and I have to tell you, she's just amazing. So, Kel, what are you sharing with us today? Welcome. And yes, what are you sharing with us today?
Thanks so much, Sally. I'm so excited to be with you. And I'm so excited about your journey and your success. It's such a privilege and an honor to be with you. I really wanted to talk a little bit about corporate life and about foundations of my family and stories that kind of set me up for a life in corporate adaptability and flexibility. So I kind of just wanted to share some of those things from my heart, Sally, if that sounds good.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I can't wait to hear what you'll be sharing. So you take it away.
Awesome. So I spent more than 2 decades in corporate executive life, many of that time with you, Sally, and others. And I really worked myself into a place of a lot of what I would call survival mechanisms. I also developed something that I now term as the Kelly Shaw Show. And really, what the Kelly Shaw Show was about keeping people away from me to really know my authentic truth and my authentic self. And that really was born from the way that my upbringing shaped me. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And when I was 3 years old, my mom remarried and we moved to Africa. And I lived in Casablanca, Morocco. And then we moved to Brussels, Belgium. And then we moved to Peoria, Illinois. And then we moved to Allentown, Pennsylvania. And then I went to college in Philadelphia. And then I moved to Vegas. And now I live in Lawrence, Kansas. And really, what all of those things set me up in life to do was to become a chameleon, in and out of all these different cultures, different languages, different foods, different people. I always had to figure out how I was going to enter into a new circle. How was I going to step forward in a new land? How was I going to enter a new school? Probably one of the most difficult transitions for me as a child was really coming back from Europe and landing in Peoria, Illinois, in a small town called Rome, Illinois, a suburb of an even smaller place called Chillicothe, Illinois. And throughout all of these ins and outs of cultures and countries and schools and children and friendships, because I was uprooted so much, I always had, it started so young to have this type of reinvention of myself. How was I going to learn how to adapt to a new environment, a new school, new people? And instead of really coming into those environments with a lot of support from my family, it really was not a supportive family that I was raised in. I was raised with a lot of judgment and a lot of criticism, and really not a lot of support to help me through entering and exiting through all these different moves. Just to step back for a second, the dad that raised me, who I call dad, he worked for an international mining corporation, which is why we lived in so many different places. And I had a really rich upbringing with him as my dad. Lots of different languages being spoken in my home, lots of different cuisines being cooked, lots of things that on the outside looked really beautiful and intriguing. But on the inside of the house was a lot of judgment and a lot of criticism and a lot of heavy-handedness from my dad. And I think that all of us have some story of trauma, whether it's nuanced trauma or serious traumas. We all have a story that way. And I had very nuanced trauma in my household. My father really was so critical of me. I was a very sensitive and intuitive kid. And it was sort of beaten out of me, if you will. When I would cry or I would feel things, I'd get slapped across the face, or I would be humiliated, or I would be criticized for having my emotions come forward. And that was extremely painful, kind of a double whammy, because I was adjusting to new schools and new friends. And I also was a very sensitive person. And while it set me up, while my intuition and my sensitivity set me up to observe and kind of land in different environments, not having support and love and nurturing in my home life really sort of disconnected me from self. So I became a chameleon. I became that person that the environment needed me to be in order to be accepted. And in a lot of places, that really meant, how did I survive bullying? I was heavily bullied. You can imagine, I was just telling this story the other day. When I came back from Europe and Africa, I had all these accessories, and my accessories were my elephant hair bracelets. And there I, yeah.
No,
Did
go
you?
ahead. Go ahead.
Um, and I would have these elephant hair bracelets. And can you imagine being a kid in the Midwest wearing elephant hair bracelets? You come to school and everyone's like, who are you? Like, why are you wearing elephant hair bracelets? And what do you mean you've lived in Africa? Like, what are you talking about? So again, this very interesting dichotomy of the outside perception of having this very interesting world, yet the inside world of my family not being available, emotionally present, or supportive. And I really think that played out heavily in my work life and heavily in my corporate world life. That with all the changes of leadership, with all the changes of strategy, I really learned how to adapt and morph to what those leaders needed and what the strategy needed to be and who I needed to be as a leader. So it's a split lesson for me. It's a lesson about, I do think that being able to adapt and be flexible and to welcome change and to embrace people that are new to an organization or a country or a culture is so critical and so important. The flip side is, I could have done with a little more self-confidence and a lot more self-empowerment, instead of feeling that I had to be a people pleaser or a chameleon. And so those are just some of the early lessons that shaped me in my corporate life. And of course, because I had a lot of pain happening inside of my home from just having two parents that had limited skills and were very disconnected from themselves, it basically kind of set me up to take on an inflated sense of responsibility, if you will. So it really became me raising my sister, and my sister and I really sort of braving the world together as my parents were very distracted with their lives and with each other.
Wow,
And
Kel,
yeah,
that's a lot. Let's pause for a minute because so many things are running through my head.
yes,
Because
please.
when I saw you, when I met you in the corporate world, everything you're saying, I saw none of it. So,
Wow.
so I saw you at as this poised, confident woman. I can listen to you speak all day. You're such an amazing, amazing speaker.
Mm.
But and you know the way you carried yourself, and I want to pause there. I don't want to forget to ask this question. All this realization that you have now, the way
Yeah.
you were conducting yourself in the workplace, did you back then realize that's what you were doing, this chameleon effect, that you were changing because of your past, because you had to do that all the time? Did it occur to you back then, right? This is why I'm doing this, or is this new self-discovery?
I think it's been a process. It's been a journey. I think I had an awareness, but I think it was limited. I think that it was sort of my way of being in the world. You know, we all have ways of how we are in the world. So I think that having this, I do know that having my facade or my walls or a presence about me was a way to keep out all of these other things. And I think that this was just the way I knew how to be, was how to be a chameleon. And funny enough, Sally, your question, I actually, when I was leading sales teams, I used to train them on how to be a chameleon. I used to say, it's really important that you adapt to your environment. And it's really important that you become what your customer needs you to be. And now I look back on some of that advice and I'm like, I don't know about that.
Like I'm cringing as I think back about, but you were coming from a space, not even realizing the space you were coming from. It was also so psychological. You're like just teaching from a space within and not realizing it.
Yeah, Sally. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were, I know you're out of the corporate world. You're talking about this openly. What would you say to somebody who's in the throes of it and in the mix of it where you were? Like, what are some of the things you would say to them today? Like, you know, to bring realization to why they're doing the things they do and how our past impacts us.
Honestly, Sally, I think that answer is in what your life passion is and what my life passion is. I really have reflected that get support, ask for a coach, ask for, a partner, an accountability partner to shine some light in the shadows. And don't be afraid of that. That's actually a sign of courage and bravery.
Mm.
Um, lean in and feel confident to ask for support.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that, we're breaking the stigmatism where more executives are reaching out for coaches and for that support and saying, like, we need it, and then getting that for their people also,
Yeah.
which I think you're in the right field now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very good. So continue to share your story. I know I kind of interrupted there, but I was so excited to ask those questions.
No, and please do interrupt, Sally.
Yeah.
This is a new practice for me,
Hmm.
and it is I'm a firm believer that my coaching passion really has to start with myself and the bridge and the path to authentic sharing from my heart about and really being open about who I am, which I think I just was very walled off for a very long time, surviving and not really recognizing that.
Yeah.
So
Do you
yeah.
know in the corporate world, and I notice a lot, like we've been in there long enough to notice people are walled off and they don't show their just their true and authentic self.
Yes.
So why? Why were you so walled off, Kel?
I think I was just so scared, Sally. I had so much fear. I really had fear that, I also think it stemmed from this in and out of different social circles and rejection and bullying. I just felt like I had to develop this persona in order to succeed in the environment. And you're absolutely right. I think that the path now, and actually in my own self reflection, really is about how do I really bring my full self to work without fear? And if I am feeling fear, what is that about? Get curious. What is my fear about? And I think I was very scared of rejection and deep insecurities. I've really struggled with a lot of confidence, which I think is why the show got bigger and bigger, the persona and the presence, and became bigger than life. That was my survival. But the true freedom and true corporate success, and I actually saw it modeled with a few leaders, not a lot of leaders, but a few leaders that really did bring their authentic selves to the table and have really good boundaries and have very good ways of saying no if something didn't serve them. And I think because of my own survival mechanisms and being raised to be a very compliant daughter in a heavy-handed from a heavy-handed parent, I think it set me up to not be vocal, and it had me always holding back versus leaning in. And I got to see that modeled from some pretty cool leaders.
That's pretty cool. So how long have you been out of the corporate world? What does that feel like? And what got you into saying, I'm going to start coaching? Like, I love this.
Yeah, Sally, it really started with my exit out of corporate world and into nonprofit.
Mm.
And I just have always had a heart for service and a heart for giving back. And I had a really awesome gaming colleague introduce me to serve on the board of directors at United Way of Southern Nevada. And, just through connections and loving the mission and the work, it really led me into nonprofit leadership and service that spoke to my heart. I felt that calling, if you will, Sally, to serve. I felt the calling to really serve and to come into that type of service work during COVID and serve the Southern Nevada community in ways that United Way could be there for people going through extreme hardships. So I feel like that was the first real awakening. I knew leaving corporate life was what I needed to do. And I knew instinctively that I needed to find the path to my authentic passions. And that really was starting with my nonprofit service and eventually working in nonprofit leadership. So moving from the board into the organization itself and funny. It really, all those years of corporate learnings set me up nicely to be able to share some of those experiences with people in the nonprofit sector. And that was just deeply meaningful to me. What has always been inspiring to me is to come into connection with people and to have conversations actually like the ones you and I used to have,
Yeah.
to have them with new leaders, to have them with people that are emerging and defining their paths. It always spoke to me to be a mentor, to really invest in people's success. I've always just felt so good and fulfilled. And I just really felt like that was an important chapter. So United Way really served me in a beautiful way of leaning into my passions of service and giving to others. And then through the United Way work, it really had a very interesting experience because I had relocated. I made a decision to relocate to Lawrence, Kansas. And it was, at a time there was a lot of change and fluctuation within United Way. And I had given my resignation because I knew that I wanted to live in Kansas. And I got to step back, Sally, because I had the most unbelievable experience in
Yeah.
Nashville, Tennessee that brought me to Lawrence.
I was going to
But
ask
as
you
you,
about that. I'm like, please mention that. Please mention
yes,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Talk to us about that.
So I was really at this juncture of a lot of, I always talk about it like green lights, red lights in corporate life, or closed doors, open doors. And there were some doors that were closing at United Way. And it really put me on a journey to say, okay, what do I really want in my life? What do I want to do? What do I want to really focus on? And there I am in Nashville, Tennessee, at a beautiful farmer's market on an incredible day in June. I think it was May or June. And I was with my sister who lives in Nashville with her family, as does my mother. And we're all at the farmer's market and the wind is blowing. And Sally, just the image of the day, right? This beautiful day, air, breeze in the air, cute dogs everywhere, really awesome smelling baked goods, guitar playing. Like it just was a magical day. And I'm walking around this farmer's market and I look at my sister and I said, this is the life I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks at me and she says, what do you mean this is the life you want to live? I said, I want to go to the farmer's market on a Saturday morning. I want to see these cute dogs. I want to listen to guitar. I want this life.
Yeah.
And we went, my mom and my sister and I, Sally, went to get our nails done. And literally we're in the nail salon, those 3 beauty chairs in a row. And my sister turns to me and she goes, why aren't you living your life the way you want to live it?
Ooh. Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Because again, going back to the people pleasing thing, I was always living my life for others and for things external to me. And I said, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a scary thought. What do you mean about living life on my terms the way I want to live? And she said, I think you should explore it. I think it's, live. Why don't you live and build the life you want? So Sally, that magical day at the Nashville Farmers Market put in motion an entire series of conversations. My husband was born and raised in Lawrence, Kansas. It was a place we took our kids every summer for vacation. And I came into conversation with my husband and I said, I know we've lived here for 25 years, but what do you think about if we just moved to Lawrence and we started a new chapter? And then in that same conversation, I said, and I've always wanted to be a coach and own my own business. Like, why don't we go to Lawrence and like build our dreams? And everything set in motion, Sally. All the doors flew open. And I really, because I have a very strong faith, I really felt that that was an amazing God moment. Like it just was the universe opening the door to step forward into a path of authenticity and dreaming and building a life that I really craved.
Wow. Do you feel like, because sometimes I feel we have to go through certain things in life and we have to stay in certain places for a certain amount of time in order to get us to where we are now. And do you feel like where you've been, what you've done, the time you spent in the corporate world has prepared you and this is the perfect timing? They say God's time is perfect timing, or should you have left the corporate world earlier? What are your thoughts on that?
I honestly believe that the timing is perfect, Sally. that it was perfect timing. And I can see a lot of people externally, because I did get the question over the years, why are you still there? Why are you still running that systems business? Why are you doing these things?
Yeah.
And I used to always say, there's so much more to learn and there's so much more to do. And I honestly, there was also a lot of self-serving happening because I was able to put my children through great high schools and college and, bring their dreams to life. And I feel like those chapters all had to complete for me. So the timing was actually beautiful, perfect timing. And I don't think I was there too long. I've reflected a lot about that. Like, should I have left, 10 years prior? Should I have gone and worked in, other different companies? And I used to always tell people, and it's still my reflection, that I did work for 10 different companies in 20 years, 21 years. There was a lot of change. I really did. I had different cultures. I had different leaders, we had different strategies. And, I feel the timing is the timing, Sally. I don't feel like I was there.
Yeah, I agree with you with that because I've seen we've evolved and changed so much over the years there that it felt like we worked for different companies. There were so many different cultures and so many changes that it did feel like that.
It did.
Yeah.
It really did. Yeah.
So a fun question for you. You said you moved around to many different countries. You were in Casablanca. Do you speak any other language? Because Sheila Bangalore was here, and I never knew she spoke Spanish.
Yes.
Yes.
So I actually didn't know Sheila spoke Spanish, and I love
what
Sheila.
What do we know? Yeah, we had no idea. Yeah.
No idea. But yes, Sally, French. So moving to Morocco as a kid, I went to a French nursery school. And, part of the adaptability thing, I had to master French as a little kid in order to converse in French with all of my French schoolmates. So yes, from the age of 3 till I moved back to the US, like around 8 or 9, speaking fluent French. As a matter of fact, it used to freak my mom out. We used to go into restaurants and I would start speaking French to people at random tables. And my mom would be like, what are you talking about? Like, are you sharing family secrets or like, what are you saying to these people? So French, languages have been a big part of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And then you said, different cuisine, you've experienced different cuisine. What's your favorite?
Gosh, Sally, I cannot tell you that I have a favorite. I mean, literally as a kid, one of my favorite meals as a child was escargot and mussels with those little skinny French fries, like shoestring French fries. Because in Belgium it was moules and frites, so it was like the mussels and the French fries. So I don't know. I love everything. And my dad that raised me, he spoke 7 languages. So we always had different languages in the house. And he is Dutch. And so we had a lot of Indonesian food. And I really love Indonesian food, like nasi goreng and rice stoffel. And my mother was a gourmet cook and made all kinds of unique things. But I have a confession, Sally, which is that I really wanted that mom and dad that made tuna noodle casserole on a Friday night. You come to my house, there's no tuna noodle casserole. You're going to hear some language being spoken on the phone because my dad would be on a conference call or something. And you'd have some bizarre meal being made or something, not bizarre, but an interesting meal. And my friends used to go, we want to come over to your house, like try out one of your meals. I'm like, no, I just want tuna noodle casserole.
I have no idea what those meals are and what you just said. I think I'm going to have to ask you about them later and go Google them. But I'm like, what is that? I have no idea what that is. So what are you doing now? I know you're a life and business coach. What else are you doing? I know you're having some fun. Tell us a little bit about your current life.
Yeah. I love my current life, Sally. So I live in this beautiful neighborhood in Lawrence, Kansas. And right now I'm really working on just settling into my house and learning things that are about Midwest yards. What kinds of plants and bugs and different things, I never had to think about living in the desert, So I'm doing a lot of things like that. And we have so much beautiful wildlife here. Like the other day I was walking I have a little corgi named Ruby, and I was taking her for a walk in the neighborhood and I ran into a red fox. And so
Oh,
the type of like beautiful birds everywhere. So spending a lot of time in nature and exploring different restaurants. There's a very cool old historic street here called Mass Street,
mhm.
and little vintage antique shops and cool restaurants, great dining experiences. And then exploring Kansas City. I'm about a 40-minute drive from Kansas City. So exploring what Kansas City has to offer and getting myself involved with local things that, again, speak to me about. There's a big art community here in Lawrence. So I'm a part of the Spencer Art Museum, which is on the Kansas University campus, KU's campus,
Mhm.
and building out new networks through the local Chamber of Commerce and networking women's groups in Kansas City. Yeah,
Yeah.
just working on a lot of things like that.
And coming back to the Kelly show,
Yeah.
that's totally over. The curtain has been pulled down and it's done, right?
Let's just say it's a work in
It's a work
progress,
in
Sally.
progress. The
You
curtain
know,
is coming down slowly.
I'm going to say that it's like a tool in your tool belt. I think
Uh-huh.
that the show can serve you well when you need it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
how about practicing some new tools? It's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. And I think everything I've learned and I've been through in life, I can apply it now in my coaching business and it helps you understand people better and I regret nothing I went through. Would you say that about you?
Totally, 100%. Had
Totally.
I not experienced a lot of that pain,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would make me. I think had I not gone through those experiences, Sally, I don't think I would be an empathetic person. And I
Yeah.
feel I probably wouldn't have a heightened sensitivity had I not gone through those things.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I, I totally agree with it. And I believe everything happens for a reason and we get to use that to help other people. Yeah. So, Kel, what's the takeaway today for our audience?
Stay curious about self, about others. Stay curious. There's always something to learn about yourself, specifically in this stage of my life and all lives. Also, practice things, experiment with styles, experiment with a different way to communicate. Ask for support. It's okay to ask for support, whatever that looks like. Hire a coach that can really partner with you in a great relationship and great experience. And it's okay if you've built walls, but you don't have to choose to stay there. You can always make a different choice. And at any point in your life, you can make a different choice. And whatever got you here, brought you here for a reason, but there's always an opportunity to explore a different path for yourself and for others.
I like that a lot. You know, and I always say it's never too late to start living resiliently. And one of the way, Kelly, I like what you said here. Bring your full self to work without fear. Come and be
Yes.
your authentic self. You don't have to hide behind a wall. People love the real you. So, with
Yes.
that being said, Kel, I want to thank you for being on our show today. It was so great to have you. It's so good to see you. And I want to thank our Sticky Paw Studio and our audience. Hey, if you are watching this, now we get to watch it live on Spotify. You get to see us. Like, is it like, rate, review, and share with your friends.
Thanks, Sally.
Thanks, Kel.
Thanks so much. All the best to you.